let's talk about this, because you do have your Polish background. So you grew up in Poland, and then you came over to LA, I guess, for the music and the acting. That correct?
Yeah, it's correct. I mean, it sounds fast when you say it like this, because there were so many steps between Poznan, my hometown, and LA. But yeah, in an essence, that's basically it. I'm a Polish-born Angelino.
Okay, so explain that, because you mentioned it's very interesting. I want to know all about those steps that brought you over, because you're on a whole different side of the world here. So explain it.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, just to make it palatably short, I grew up in Poland of the 80s, basically, which was the end of the kind of communist Russian regime. So it was all socialist country still, kind of, gray, and it wasn't exactly full of exciting career opportunities at that point. I mean, when I say it was gray, it was kind of grim when it came to just what you could get to do in life and how colorful it was going to be from that standpoint at that time, but it was actually kind of a great place to grow up. So, when you don't have much, materially speaking, you can turn to intellectual and kind of fun, stimulating things. So in Poland those days, it was all about three things. It was family, church, and culture. So it was incredibly stimulating. We grew up on theater, on opera, on movies. There was this huge, amazing network of film clubs in Poland. They were actually called discussion film clubs. And what it was is because you couldn't, on popular screens, get most of the movies that were being shown in the world because of, the system screening everything and cutting everything out, basically. There was this way to get around it with these film clubs. My dad was one of the directors of that network of film clubs, which was hugely helpful because it let me get into them before I really came of age and I could. So from the age of something like 12 on, we would catch these fantastic screenings of movies that were everything from, the French New Wave to Pier Paolo Pasolini, Fellini, the great Polish filmmakers, American, English, anything that was edgy and relevant and exciting was being shown. And it was such a fantastic window into the world, got you out of where you were and just kind of plugged into everything that, could be stimulating to somebody growing up at that time. But I think what it also did is it kind of imbued this sense of wonder and what I wanted my life to be that wasn't necessarily informed by what was around me, but what I saw on the screen and what I imagined from theater. And, I got into music in a big way. There wasn't much available on the radio that wasn't government sanctioned. So, with all the music I was getting from, elsewhere. And it just kind of made me want to live life out loud as a huge adventure that was governed by creativity and things I wanted to do and not was told to do. I have this inborn disdain for authority and rules, and I just wanted to, do my own thing. And that propelled me to go, at the age of 17, I was like, what am I going to do with myself? I really want to just be out there in the world. And at the time, you couldn't even travel. Yeah, I read somewhere in the paper with my mom, we were flipping through the newspaper, and it said, there's a beauty contest somewhere in town. And there was going to be a French modeling scout present, and one of the awards for the contest was to go away to Paris or whatever. And I had no interest in fashion or modeling whatsoever. And, I was like a 17-year-old rebel who was into intellectual things and alternative cinema. But I was like, trip to Paris sounds kind of good. It would be kind of fun. And, the rest is kind of history. I mean, I won the contest, and over a period of 2 weeks, I was transported to Paris, where I was faced with a whole other reality. And it was an incredibly fast way to grow up, but also, hugely productive, a huge eye-opener, and it taught me very early on to take care of myself and, what's important, but also just kind of get yourself out there and learn how to live.
Absolutely. Okay, so at 17 you won this beauty contest and it brought you to Paris. So draw me the connection then from Paris to making it into the LA, into the States.
First phase of it was just a giant shocker because we're talking Paris, the late 80s, so the apogee of this was disco days and, and drugs and rock and roll and whatever. It was for a totally sheltered girl from Poznan, who was, raised with just family around and all that. It was quite a big shocker. but also quickly taught me to just kind of go, okay, well, we need to reevaluate here and figure out how to survive this thing without being killed in the field in the meantime. And like I said, I was not really somebody fascinated by fashion or modeling. In fact, I knew nothing of it. It was my first experience with being alone, no family. I didn't really have any means to support myself other than just plunge myself into work and try to get some employment. So getting over there was one thing, but getting hired was another. And I mean, kind of very, very long story short, after a few months there, a bunch of issues you're dealing with. You feel lonely, you feel self-doubt. It just it gets so tough. But I made it work, and I started getting hired. My first big break was Claude Montana, who at the time was the biggest Paris designer. He won year after year, the number one couture designer in France. So it was really great. And then it just kind of started happening. So I within a year, I was kind of walking like the biggest runways in Paris, from, Claude Montana to Chanel, Valentino, Guy Laroche, whatever, just the whole thing. And it was really quite wonderful getting into that world, and I appreciated it hugely for, the chances it awarded me. But in my head this whole time, I had other things. So music and movies always governed what I wanted to do in life and always made my heart skip a beat. It was not fashion. So as much as it kind of let me travel the world, because after I got established in Paris, I also worked in Holland, England, Germany, just kind of all over. I was like, I'm ready for the next step. After about, 3-4 years, I was like, this, I should be something else out there. And I got hired on a job out of New York. It was a big commercial, beer commercial, that shot in Dallas. So actually, Dallas, Texas was the first place where I touched down in the States. And it was kind of like my first step getting closer to where I wanted to be, because for some reason in my head I had that LA would be the place for me. It would feel like home. I don't know why. It just was, something by osmosis and all those hours spent in the dark movie theater, I guess. But in any case, yes, I'll cut this story very, very, very short. Dallas, New York, worked there for, year 2, 3, did all those runways and commercials and print, Donna Karan, Jill Sander, did Oscar de la Renta in New York a lot, Calvin Klein, all that. And then I finally started getting hired for a bunch of, I think I went with Oscar de la Renta for the first time to LA to do a fashion show for him or something like that. And that brought me to LA, and I started making trips to LA basically to just kind of, get in that LA frame of mind without having to make the giant move yet. Because every place you go, it's one thing if you're making it once, but when you move a whole bunch of times, you have to kind of reposition yourself, get to know a whole other set of circumstances in the town, remake your friends as if it were, a makeshift family. So it just kind of, it's always a big traumatizing thing. And at that point, I'd done it so much. But LA was kind of like I thought. I arrived, and I think the city has this sort of magic within it that whoever you are, you can feel right at home. It's, those sunny hills beckon, and wherever you are, you're only about 30 minutes at most from the beach. And I got there and I was like, okay, this feels like home. My tired soul can rest. So yeah, LA is it.
No, I agree. I like how you kind of transitioned it. You gave us the whole story of that. So it's basically like fashion kind of got your foot in the door, per se, but it also led you to, getting into your acting and your music. But you always had that passion. It was just that this was your kind of path to get there.
I always had the passion. For acting, I started back in theater, which is very strenuous. And in Poland, we take arts theater very seriously. So I would take classes. I would do amateur theater. I would fill in if anybody ever needed a young performer at, big theaters. And in Poland, all the Grotowski method, Stanislavski, Uta Hagen, we studied it all. We did it all. So it was really deep within me, but I hadn't exercised it through all the years that I did modeling, so I was dying to do it when I finally got to LA. You've
done quite well. I'm just looking at a few of the things here, just scrolling through your accomplishments. You were in Aquaman. You had Annabelle Comes Home, which I believe, even when I was following you on Twitter, you were interviewed about that as well. So describe to me these roles. Like, how did you land them, and what did you think of the movies in general that you were cast in?
Well, I will say this. I don't just do acting. I do a whole plethora of things that basically feeds my soul and keeps me excited and interested. So, acting, as you know or may not know, it is a really tough, piece of bread, as they say in Poland, because it is a lot of work that you do before and after you get a part, if you're lucky enough to actually get a part. So first movie I was ever in, my screen debut, as it were, was in The Wedding Planner. I have a great scene with Jennifer Lopez where I play a bride that applied too much self-tanner. So that was a great way to enter into the movies. It was entertaining, it was fun, it was great. It was great working with Jennifer. And it was like a great first glimpse into it. But, I do all kinds of really fabulous, fun parts, and I've had a chance to kind of watch this business from the best perspective. So I've worked on tiny independent projects, and I still do. I always do that. But I've also had a chance to work on really big films with big budgets where you get to see the magic of filmmaking in full throttle. So watching Aquaman happen in front of my very eyes, or Annabelle Comes Home, for instance. You get to see incredible acting all around you and incredible directing. So Aquaman is, James Wan directed, one of my all-time heroes and a real-life superhero. Incredible director, creative, visionary, just an unbelievable guy. But you also get to watch this whole group of craftsmen who come onto the set and transform it every day, and it comes in all shapes and sizes. You've got amazing people who do wardrobe, first of all, and design your look, and then you have everybody who builds the set and then transforms it within a few hours sometimes. You get to see the incredible special effects, the incredible visual effects teams doing their magic. It's like nothing else in the world. And talk about your childhood dreams coming true. It's, when you just kind of look around you and you go, I am in the middle of this unbelievable storm of creativity, done the best it can be done. These people are the best in their fields in the world. So acting affords me all those opportunities to really watch it from every direction, but it also makes you want to be creative in every possible way. So, I also produce films. We've done a few within the Safran company that were kind of small independent ones that I've really loved doing. We did Mine with Armie Hammer, and we did The Atticus Institute, which is a great horror. So, I'm developing a script right now about an American kind of blues legend, which is terribly exciting. So I work everything all the time because just acting probably wouldn't be enough and wouldn't fill up enough of my time. And I am just a person who likes to be busy and fascinated all the time. I'm like a kid at heart. So I just keep firing up on all the engines. And when I'm not acting, we do music. So there's just always a lot going on.
Yeah, I can definitely tell by the way that when you're giving me these answers, it's very coming across your passion for the acting and your passion for, wanting to keep busy, which, I applaud that because, you want to keep yourself busy. You don't want to be... Some people like to sit around and do nothing, which sometimes I like to do, but if you like to be busy, it sounds like that's what you're into. And especially when you're able to act and then, keep it within the field itself, like to make your own films, be a part of these independent projects is something that I think is really cool.
It's amazing. Yeah, you really get to then just kind of be the boss of it, and there's not too many people telling you what to do, so you're kind of more in control of the shape it's going to be in at the end. It's kind of cool.
Now, the other thing that you mentioned, which I want to get into as well, is that you write music. So, you're like a triple threat, acting, directing, and with music with, I believe, your brother Mike.
Yeah, my brother Mick, that's right.
Or Mick, sorry. And the band is called The Forevers, correct?
Yeah, we used to put music out under Natalia Safran, but we changed it just recently, and we changed it to The Forevers because it just felt cooler to have it be a project that has a name instead of just going under my name. Yeah. So it is The Forevers now, yeah.
No, I agree because what I kind of make the joke of it with, I'm a big fan of country music. So, there's the Eli Young band, there's James Barker's band, and I'm like, okay, there's like four of you though. So I get it that you named it after.
I agree. I'm with you on that. I kind of like when it feels like a collective that's pitching in together. The Pearl Jam. Come on, let's go.
Exactly. So that's why I can't really throw too much shade because here I am hosting a podcast called Tobin Tonight.
Wow.
Right? So
I mean, you're the guy behind the mic, so we'll cut you some slack.
Thank you. So I wanted to talk about this because I thought this was really, really cool. Is that the song "All I Feel Is You" it's actually you're the second Polish artist to have a Billboard charting hit. Like, do you know that, or is that something that you kind of praise?
You know what? I didn't know this until somebody just told me pretty recently, and I was quite excited about that. That sounds great.
Yeah, because, I mean, so I'll give you a little bit of insight, too, because we had, again, I don't know if you would know these people, but we had Emma Watkins on from The Wiggles. Now,
I listened to that podcast when I was checking you out. That's a very good podcast, too.
And, like, she talks about when, in the later part of the episode, I believe she's talking about when she grew up listening to bands like Bewitched and BB Mac and all these, and they're like, UK acts, and I knew them, but then she was talking about how certain people in Canada didn't know them, and I'm thinking, okay, so, even the lesser-known acts that you think are one-hit wonders in Canada, the US, I'll still know about, but when I seen that it's the second Polish artist to have a Billboard charting hit, I was thinking to myself, no, there has to be more Polish artists, and I'm not taking that away from you, I just thought, like, that has to be, like, if you go into your room or if anyone ever meets you, that has to be something that you shake their hand and go, second Polish artist to have a Billboard charting hit. And they're like, what? You? And
I like that. Thank you. I think I might start touting that around town.
Exactly. That's how you should. And then people would be like, oh, okay. Like, I see this. Like, then they'll go home, Google you, find out a lot more. And then you'll be getting interviews.
Cool.
You'll be getting interviews with Rick D and Jimmy Fallon.
You've got something there. I like the way you think. I've got to wrap my head around this. I just kind of let it go, and I never thought about it again.
Well, that's how I...
So thanks for making me think about it.
Absolutely, because that's how I would think about it. Like, if I was a podcast and they said that I was the second most downloaded podcast in Canada, I'm not going out on the streets going, hi, I'm Tobin from Tobin Tonight. They'll be like, who's that? Now, if I said second most downloaded Canadian podcast, give it time. They might say, oh, I don't know who you are, but I'm going to check it out now and find out more information.
Yeah, but that sounds good.
Yeah, exactly, right. Exactly.
Well,
so,
by the way, you've got a nice Twitter feed. When I was, reading about you, I went on your Twitter and I was like, that's very nice. Particularly your repost of the Chris Hayes, clip. I was like, okay, this guy's my people. Let's do it.
Yeah, for sure. Like I that's the one thing I find about Twitter too. You got to be careful. So I kind of try to keep the podcast away from that stuff. But on my own personal one, I feel like, and it's something that I think, especially in today's world, that people can't differentiate or make the difference between your personal and professional. Like, for example, if you have yourself. If you went on the Forevers and you kept on posting stuff on Twitter about your album, the band, and then if you make one tweet about something that you're up against, some fans will be like, well, now I'm not following you. Like, I'm done.
Right.
But in hindsight, you should be looking and saying, like, it's okay to have another opinion, but do you still like our music? Okay, well, that's cool. Like, you can do that.
You got to be purposeful about what you put out there. But I guess, those are the trappings of the modern age and social media and such, but it gives us this great avenue in which to reach people, so it's all right?
When you're talking about music and writing it with your brother, and of course, like I mentioned, the second Polish artist to have a Billboard charting hit, explain all that to me. Like, how did that all come to be?
Music was first in my heart. That was always a thing. So I remember being 13 specifically, in Poland, in some big crowded room, and across the room I spotted a TV, and it had Bruce Springsteen doing Born in the USA, on it. It was like a clip from his concert or whatever. And I've never heard of him. I've never seen him before. It just stopped me in my tracks cold. I was like, what is this person? What is he doing? Wow, what delivery. And, I started pursuing his music and finding out more about who he was, what it was. Read the lyrics to Born in the USA, and I was like, this guy is a poet. He's unbelievable. And I wanted to feel this kind of passion and, this conviction. And it got me into music in a big way that I don't know I would have gotten otherwise. So I definitely have Bruce to credit for, well, a lot of things. But my love of music, I think he was the first one to just kind of get me completely shocked into it. There was always music in my house, but it was more classical music. It was quite different. And like I said, on the Polish radio, and there was no availability of really cool, good music out there. It was just kind of, Polish pop, which some of it was great, but music that came from the world, it was not much. So got me listening, really got me into it. And it was my passion. It was what got me through the days when I wasn't in the movie theater watching those crazy great movies. I was listening to the music, and it was everything to me. But to go from that to making music, there's a long way, and some people never make it. So, I think I have Mick to credit for that giant leap, because I was making up songs in my head, and I was singing always and all that kind of stuff. And, I studied opera singing, so I've done that for a while, and it was always somehow in my life. But it wasn't ever a plan of, I'm going to make music for a living. It just honestly never occurred to me that something you love so much could be the thing you would do as a profession, as a job. So it wasn't until Nick was working with somebody in Poland with like a great guitar legend, and that I loved, and he happened to work with this guy, and he was like, hey, we should put some songs down and record it, with this guy, because, we've always loved him, and he's got such an incredible way of playing guitar. So we recorded a couple of songs. It was kind of going slowly, and, it was nice, but whatever. And then it wasn't until we sat down together with Mick and started working on one of those songs we were supposed to do or whatever. And it turned out that when it came to my singing, his playing, and us brainstorming a melody together, it was nothing more natural in the world, and it just came pouring out of us. And that's how it became a career path, basically. Mick was like, we should be doing this. You should be doing this. And I was like, really? One can really do this for a living? Have this much fun? Is that legal? We started doing without a bigger plan. We just kind of were putting songs together. And then it was Mick's wild idea to open up a profile on this crowdfunding site called Celeband, which became big, particularly in Europe, way before GoFundMe or whatever. It was the big one. And I was skeptical, because I thought, opening a profile with a bunch of, strangers from around the world, what's that going to accomplish? But I was really wrong. We got all these incredible people to listen to our music, and just fans, just people from around the world, a lot of them from Europe, going, we love your music. We want to put in $10, $100, $500, whatever it was, into the fund. And that's, what Celeband did, it crowdfunded to get your first album made so that we can get our hands on it, we believe. And it was an incredible jolt of confidence for us, and also to have this daily fan feedback from people who would check in on your profile, hear the new songs you were putting up, and then pitch in what they wanted to pledge for this album. And we rose to number one among over 10,000 artists in record time. And within just a few weeks, it was something like, a couple of months, 3 months, whatever, we gathered the funds to record our first album. It was 50K, so it was no small peanuts, and it was just amazing. And we were able to go in a studio and just really, work with people we wanted to, and put this album together called High Noon. It was just an amazing adventure experience, and our first giant foray, into making music professionally. And basically, we never looked back. So, yeah, it's been a phenomenal ride.
You mentioned all about your music. You mentioned all about your acting as well. Who are some of the biggest musicians and actors that you like today or would like to work with?
Oh my God! You just took opening Pandora's box. I am never satisfied, and I always want to work with all these other people. I have such a giant list of them. I grew up adoring Bruce Springsteen, like I mentioned, and Seattle grunge was my thing. So Eddie Vedder, Bruce Springsteen, Willie Nelson are my all-time heroes. To do anything with them would be just a dream beyond dreams, right?
That's going to do it for this episode of Tobin Tonight. Our thanks to Natalie Safran for coming on the show. Remember, you can find past, present, and future episodes on TobinTonight.com, Spotify, and iTunes. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and leave a comment or two. For Tobin and myself, this is Jacob saying, thanks for listening and good night.